Hey, this is attorney Elizabeth Potts-Weinstein, and today we're going to talk about what to do if your attorney won't return your calls or emails. So if your attorney is not returning your calls or emails, you may be incredibly frustrated and disappointed in them and assume that the reason they're not returning your calls or emails is because they're negligent or just being a big jerk or something like that. And that may be true. They may be doing a bad job for you, but there are also other reasons, and I suggest you consider those because it will help you make a decision about how to proceed. So for example, if someone's not being responsive to your communications, it could be because they have some big emergency. That person could be sick, they could be in the hospital, they could have passed away, they could be evacuated because of a fire or a flood. Something extreme could be going on and you just don't happen to know about it. Now, all attorneys are supposed to have somebody else on hand, an assistant, a paralegal, another attorney, to communicate with all their clients if there is an emergency. But maybe that process didn't work in this situation or they just didn't set it up. Second, they could have just not gotten your communication. By now, you probably have tried to communicate multiple times, but it is incredibly possible, and I've had it happen with me, with my clients, where you may send multiple emails, you may leave multiple voicemails, and they're not getting any of those messages because there's some bad technical glitch, or it's getting caught by a spam filter, who knows, and it's not getting through to them. The last thing that could happen, and this is very common for lawyers, is that they got your message and they're not emailing you back or calling you back until they have time to answer you. They need to do some research, they need to prepare documents, whatever it is, and they're not planning to communicate with you until it's done. Now, what you probably want is for them to just acknowledge your communication. But lawyers and a lot of other people tend to use their email inboxes as to-do lists. And so they won't reply to someone until they have it done. Now, I'm not saying that any of those reasons are an okay reason for your attorney to not call you back or email you back. But knowing that those reasons exist may make you approach it differently. So what do you do if your attorney won't return your calls or emails? What I recommend is the first thing you do is send another email or call them and leave another voicemail that says that you're worried or you're concerned that something has happened to them and you just want to know that they got your message. For most people in most situations, if they are getting your message, they will return the email, they'll return the call and say, oh yeah, I'm okay, I've just been super busy, and yeah, I get your message and I'm gonna get right on it. And that will help move things forward. Another thing you can do is try to contact somebody else in their office. They may have an executive assistant or a paralegal who is working for them, and that person may be a lot easier to get into touch with and can let you know if something has happened to the attorney and maybe even be able to answer your question. Now, let's say they don't have an assistant or paralegal, and let's say you've contacted them a couple different times and they haven't gotten back to you. The next thing I would do is quickly check their social media, if they have social media, to make sure nothing huge has happened. You may be able to find out if there's an emergency or an illness or death in the family by just checking their public social media. Some lawyers, especially older ones, don't have anything like that, but a lot of them do nowadays. So you can go on Facebook, Twitter, you can look on their Instagram. Some lawyers may even have TikTok by this point. Whatever social media exists by the time you're watching this video, that's a great way to find out if anything emergent is going on. And then the last thing that you can do is just contact them in a different way. So if you've been emailing them, then you call them. You probably already figured that out with the call and email. You also may be able to contact them via social media or fill out a form on their website, because that can go in a different place and maybe even going to their assistant or other staff, and they can get the message that way. So what if you've already done all this? This is all obvious to you. You've tried multiple different ways. You tried other people in the office. Maybe they don't have anybody else in the office because they're still a practitioner. What do you do next? And how long should you wait for a response? So here's the thing. It really depends upon which situation you're in. One situation is that you have an imminent, strict deadline set by a court or some government agency that you have to deal with. The other is, obviously this is important to you. You have a personal deadline, but there's not a strict deadline that's a drop dead date. So deadlines can be things like filings that are due in litigation. It can be that you have a trademark or patent pending and you need to respond to the Patent and Trademark Office. It could be that you need to get back to the other side by a certain deadline because there's a settlement offer pending, but it only is valid to a certain time. Those issues you're going to approach differently than if you don't have a strict deadline. If you have a strict deadline, then how long you wait depends upon what the deadline is. You don't want to have to find another attorney the day of the deadline or the day before the deadline. You want to give that new attorney at least a couple weeks to be able to get up on your case or dispute. So if your attorney's not getting back to you relatively soon, I mean, you're going to probably want to give them a couple days, if at least. But if they're not getting back to you quickly and that deadline is looming, then you do need to start looking for a different attorney. On the flip side, if the deadline is months and months and months away, or if you don't have a strict deadline, then it makes sense to give them a couple of weeks before you start looking for someone else to help you. Now, if you're in an emergency situation where you have a deadline that's today or tomorrow or the next day, and you're not going to be able to find a lawyer to help you, you might be able to, but if you can't find someone to help you, then you may need to contact the court, the clerk of the court. You may need to contact the government agency that the deadline is pending. You may need to contact the attorney for the other side who sent the settlement offer to just tell them that you need more time so you can find a new lawyer because your lawyer is not responsive. Many times there'll be a process for you to get more time, and the person that you contact can give you information about how you follow that process. Again, this is Elizabeth Potts Weinstein. If you have any questions about your particular situation, feel free to put them in the comments below and I'll see if I can point you in the right direction. If you found this video helpful, hit the like button and of course subscribe if you'd like more legal tips in the future. Thanks a lot, you guys. Bye-bye.